Most Americans spend more money on a car than they realize, and not because they choose an expensive model. They do it because they pick the wrong way to buy one. I spent several weeks running real numbers on all 4 main ways to get a car in America, and honestly, the results surprised even me. The difference between the most expensive and the cheapest option over 3 years is enough money to go on vacation at least 3 times. That's why today, we're going to break down every option, what it actually is, how much it really costs, and why the dealership really doesn't want you thinking about any of this. Part 1. The 4 ways to get a car. The first way is to buy it outright. You walk in, pay the full price, and drive away. The car is yours. No monthly payments, no interest, no strings attached. It sounds simple, and in many ways, it is. But there's one important nuance we'll talk about later that surprises a lot of people. The second way is a traditional auto loan. This is what most people mean when they say, I bought a car on credit. You make a down payment, finance the rest, and pay it off with interest over several years, usually 3 to 6. At the end, the car is fully yours. It's straightforward and transparent, or at least it should be. The third way is leasing. This is where things get interesting. Leasing is essentially a long-term rental. You pay a monthly fee for the right to use the car, and at the end of the contract, usually 2 or 3 years, you simply give it back. The key difference from a loan is that you're not paying for the entire car, only for the portion of its value that you use up during the lease period. In other words, you're paying for depreciation. That's why the monthly payment on a lease is usually noticeably lower than on a loan for the same car. But that doesn't automatically mean leasing is cheaper. I'll explain why shortly. The fourth way, and the one dealers push the hardest, is what's called a balloon payment or finance with residual. In the US, this is usually structured as a special type of financing, where a large final payment remains at the end of the contract. Here's how it works. You pay a deposit, then make relatively small monthly payments throughout the contract. At the very end, you have to either pay the remaining large sum and keep the car forever, return the car, or, and this is where the dealer starts smiling, roll into a new car with a new contract. Dealers love that third option the most. Can you guess why? Now that we understand what each option actually is, let's talk about the money, because this is where most people either win or lose, often without even realizing it. I took a typical family sedan, something like a Honda Accord or Toyota Camry, with a starting price of around $32,000. This is a very common choice for an American family. Then I ran all 4 scenarios with the same conditions, about 15% down payment and a 3-year term. Part 2. The real numbers. Traditional auto loan. With a down payment of about $4,800 and an interest rate, let's take realistic current figures, somewhere in the range of 7 to 8% per year. The monthly payment comes out to roughly $830 to $850 per month. Over 3 years, in total, you will pay about $35,000 to $36,000 for a car that you bought for $32,000. Plus, at the end it is yours. In 3 years, such a car on the secondary market costs in the range of $16,000 to $18,000, depending on condition and mileage. If you sell it, the final cost of ownership for 3 years will be approximately $18,000 to $20,000. Leasing. Here the picture looks different. With the same initial down payment, the monthly lease payment for the same Accord or Camry is on the order of $350 to $400 per month. Why so cheap? Because you pay only for depreciation, for how much the car ages during your use. Over 3 years, in total, you will spend about $17,500 to $18,000. You return the car. No sale, no headache with reselling. At first glance, it looks pretty good. But here's what's important. With leasing, there are mileage restrictions, usually 10,000 to 12,000 miles per year. If you drive more, every additional mile costs money, usually 15 to 25 cents. This adds up quickly. Plus, the car must be returned in excellent condition. Any scratches or damage beyond normal wear and tear come out of your pocket. Balloon finance/finance with residual payment. This is where the most interesting part begins. The scheme looks attractive. The deposit is the same. The monthly payment, let's say $460 to $480 per month, lower than with a regular loan. But at the end of 3 years, a final payment, let's say $14,000 to $15,000. And here you have a choice. If you return the car, the total expenses for 3 years will be approximately $22,000 to $23,000. Compare this with leasing. You spent $4,000 to $5,000 more for practically the same result. If you buy out the car, the final cost exceeds $37,000. This is more expensive than just taking a regular loan. Is this beneficial for someone? In certain situations, yes, but notice that none of the outcomes of this scheme turn turns out cheaper than the alternatives. However, for the dealer, it's ideal, because at the end of 3 years, you either pay them again or take the next car. The cycle does not break. Buying immediately and in full, $32,000 on the table, and the car is yours. In 3 years, you sell it for $16,000 to $17,000. The final cost of ownership is about $15,000 to $16,000 for 3 years. This is the cheapest option of all four. But, and this is a big but, the $32,000 invested in the car on the day of purchase is $32,000 that is not working anywhere else. This is called opportunity cost, and it cannot be ignored. Part 3. What dealers don't talk about. Let's talk about opportunity cost, because this is the concept that changes the whole picture. Suppose you have $32,000. Instead of putting all of it into the car, you pay only the down payment, $4,800. Take out a loan and invest the remaining $27,000 into a diversified portfolio. Historically, the US stock market has returned an average of about 7 to 10% per year over long horizons. Over 3 years, these $27,000 could hypothetically grow. The question you should ask yourself is, can this difference offset the extra interest costs on the loan? Depending on the specific numbers, sometimes yes, sometimes no, but it's important to ask this question at all, rather than automatically going to the dealer and taking what he offers. And here's another point that many people miss. When you come to the dealership and say, I need a good monthly payment, you are essentially giving the dealer all the cards, because he can manipulate 3 variables at once: the price of the car, the interest rate, and the loan term, in such a way that the monthly payment looks acceptable, while the total overpayment is maximized. The right question to ask is not how much per month, but how much in total. Part 4. The psychology of choice. Now, and this is what I consider the underrated part of any conversation about cars. Let's talk about psychology, because the financially optimal option and the psychologically suitable option are not always the same, and that's normal. If you are one of those people who drive the same car for 7 to 10 years, it probably doesn't make sense to look in the direction of leasing. Leasing is beneficial when you constantly want to drive something new and upgrade every 2 or 3 years. If you take a car for the long term, a regular loan or buying outright will most likely be cheaper in the long-term perspective. Plus, once the loan is paid off, your monthly payment disappears. This feeling of financial freedom itself is hard to overestimate. If you love new cars and don't want to think about reselling, leasing really makes sense. You are always in something modern. You have no headache of how to sell the old car. The warranty period usually covers the entire contract term. That is, you don't have to fear major repairs. But it is important to be honest with yourself about mileage. If you drive a lot, leasing turns into a financial trap. If you have the money to buy a car outright, don't rush to do it automatically. It is counterintuitive, but sometimes taking a loan and at the same time investing the free money is a mathematically more advantageous strategy. Sometimes not. It depends on the interest rate on the loan, on your investment opportunities, and on your personal risk tolerance. But it is definitely worth at least calculating before making a decision. And separately, about buying a used car. This is an option that for some reason is often ignored in such conversations. A new car loses from 15 to 25% of its value in the very first year. This means that by buying a car that is 2 or 3 years old, you are essentially allowing someone else to pay the steepest part of the depreciation for you. At the same time, the car is still relatively new, often still under warranty, and the difference in driving sensations is minimal. From a financial point of view, this is one of the most reasonable approaches, especially if you buy it with cash or take a small loan. So, what does all this mean? If you want to minimize your total costs, buying the car outright, especially a used one with low mileage, will most likely be the most advantageous option in the long run. If you want the lowest possible monthly payment and aren't attached to a specific car, leasing can be a reasonable solution, provided that you carefully read the contract terms, especially regarding mileage. If you need to own the car, but don't have the ability to pay the full amount up front, a regular auto loan with transparent terms is better than the balloon payment schemes that dealers actively promote. And the most important thing, no matter which path you choose, always calculate the total amount, not the monthly payment. This is the only number that truly shows how much the car actually costs you. Dealerships are very good at one thing, taking a large and uncomfortable number and breaking it down into small, convenient payments until you stop noticing how much you're giving away in total. Now, you notice it. Tell me in the comments, how did you buy your current car? And if you were choosing again right now, would you do the same thing?